It is 3 in the morning, you wake up. The room is completely black. You don't know what time it is, you don't know where your shoes are. And then out of the corner of your eye, you see it. A shadow. A shape. Something moving in the dark. Your heart slams against your ribs. Your breath catches. You're terrified, but you're not in danger. You're in your own bedroom. There's no predator in the corner. There's no threat in the closet. There's only a pile of laundry and a half-empty glass of water. Yet your body is flooded with adrenaline. Your muscles are coiled. Your brain is screaming at you to run. Why does this happen? Why does your brain, this incredibly advanced modern logical organ, completely short-circuit the moment the lights go out? Here's the thing, nobody tells you. Your fear of the dark is not a phobia. It is not a psychological glitch. It is not a childhood hangover that you never quite grew out of. It is a highly calibrated, perfectly optimized survival mechanism. It is an ancient piece of biological software running in the background of your mind, keeping you alive in a world that no longer exists. And the evidence for this is genuinely insane. Before we go deeper into the dark, let me ask you something. What is the one thing you immediately check when you wake up in the middle of the night in a pitch-black room? Let me know in the comments. To understand why you're terrified of a dark bedroom, you have to understand what the dark actually meant for 99% of human history. We need to go back, way back. Imagine the Pleistocene epoch. You're a Homo sapiens. You're living on the African savanna or maybe migrating through the dense, unforgiving forests of early Europe. The sun goes down. And when the sun goes down, the world does not just get dim, it ceases to exist. There are no streetlights. There are no glowing screens. There are no ambient city glows reflecting off the clouds. When the sun drops below the horizon, the darkness is absolute. It is a physical weight, it is a sensory deprivation tank that covers the entire planet. And in that absolute darkness, you're blind. Your eyes, which are your primary survival tool, are suddenly useless. You are reduced to hearing and smell. And in the Pleistocene, hearing and smell were not telling you comforting stories. They were telling you that you're at the bottom of the food chain. Think about that for a second. You're a soft, slow, clawless, fangless primate. You do not have thick hide. You do not have venom. You do not have the raw, explosive speed of a cheetah or the crushing bite force of a hyena. Your only advantage is your brain. Your only advantage is your ability to see threats coming from a distance. But at night, that advantage is gone. The night belongs to the things that want to eat you. The cave lions, the saber-toothed cats, the giant short-faced bears, the packs of dire wolves. These animals did not sleep when you slept. They evolved specifically to hunt in the dark. Their eyes are tapetum lucidum equipped, reflecting light to see in the pitch black. Their hearing is hyper-tuned to the snap of a twig. Their smell can track your sweat from a mile away. For a prehistoric human, the dark was not just an absence of light. It was an active, hunting, lethal environment. The dark was the mouth of the predator. And if you were not terrified of the dark, you did not survive to pass on your genes. The humans who looked at the pitch-black cave entrance and thought, "Ah, what a peaceful, relaxing time to take a stroll," were eaten. They were dragged into the brush. They were erased from the gene pool. The humans who looked at the dark and felt a cold, paralyzing spike of adrenaline, who huddled close to the fire, who kept their ears strained for every snapping twig, who slept with one hemisphere of their brain half awake, those humans survived. Those humans are your ancestors. Every single time you feel a spike of irrational fear when the lights go out, you're feeling the echo of 100,000 years of successful predation avoidance. You're feeling the ghost of the saber-toothed cat. Let's take a step back and look at the full picture. How does your brain actually execute this fear? It is not just a vague feeling of unease. It is a massive, complex neurological cascade that hijacks your entire central nervous system in milliseconds. When the lights go out, your visual cortex is suddenly starved of data. But the brain hates a vacuum. The brain is a prediction machine, and it needs to predict what is in the environment to keep you alive. When it lacks visual data, it starts to hallucinate. It starts to fill in the blanks. This is a phenomenon called pareidolia. It is the same psychological mechanism that makes you see faces in the clouds or hear your name in the white noise of a fan. But in the dark, pareidolia is weaponized by your amygdala. The amygdala is the ancient almond-shaped cluster of nuclei deep in your temporal lobes. It is the threat detection center of the brain. And in the dark, the amygdala becomes hyperactive. Dr. Joseph Ledoux, a pioneering neuroscientist at New York University, has spent decades mapping the exact neural circuits of fear. His research shows that when sensory information is ambiguous, like a shadow in a dark room, the signal takes a low road directly from the thalamus to the amygdala, bypassing the conscious, logical processing of the visual cortex entirely. This means your amygdala reacts to the shadow before your conscious mind even knows what it is looking at. Your heart rate spikes, your pupils dilate, your muscles tense, you're prepared to fight or flee. A fraction of a second later, the signal takes the high road to the visual cortex, which processes the image and realizes it is just a pile of laundry. The cortex sends an inhibitory signal back to the amygdala to calm down. But that initial spike of terror has already happened. You have already been hijacked. Your brain prioritized a false positive over a false negative. In the Pleistocene, a false positive meant you ran away from a shadow and wasted a few calories. A false negative meant you assumed the shadow was a rock, and you were eaten by a cave lion. Evolution heavily favors the paranoid. It favors the brain that assumes every shadow is a predator. So when you're lying in bed, staring at a dark corner and your brain insists there's a monster in there, your brain is not broken. It is doing exactly what it was designed to do. It is running a high-stakes threat assessment in an environment of zero data, and honestly, respect. But the fear of the dark is not just about what is hiding in the shadows. It is also about what happens when you close your eyes. It is about the architecture of sleep itself. We tend to think of sleep as a continuous, unbroken block of unconsciousness. You close your eyes, you drift off, you wake up 8 hours later, but that is a modern illusion. Human sleep is fundamentally fragmented, and the darkness is what triggers the fragmentation. Dr. Matthew Walker, a leading neuroscientist and author of Why We Sleep, has extensively documented the neurological mechanics of the sleeping brain. He explains that human sleep is composed of multiple cycles, and we naturally wake up briefly at the end of every cycle. For most of human history, these brief awakenings happened in the dark. And when you wake up in the dark, your brain immediately runs a security check. This is known as the sentinel function of sleep. Your brain briefly boots up the auditory and olfactory systems to scan the environment for threats. If everything is quiet, if the fire is still burning, if the tribe is still breathing, you drift back to sleep. But if you wake up in the dark and your sentinel function detects an anomaly, or if your amygdala is already hyper-aroused from a nightmare, you snap fully awake. And because you're in the dark, the pareidolia kicks in. The shadows look like threats, the fear spikes, and you're stuck. This is why insomnia is so deeply linked to anxiety and the dark. Your modern brain is trying to run a Pleistocene security sweep in a suburban bedroom, and it is finding threats that aren't there. If you're finding value in this deep dive into your own biology, do me a favor. Hit the like button and share this video with someone who is terrified of the dark. It helps spread these insights to others. To understand how we eventually conquered this fear, we have to look at the single most important technological innovation in human history. It was not the wheel, it was not the spear. It was fire. The mastery of fire fundamentally rewired our relationship with the dark. It pushed back the night, it created a bubble of safety in a hostile world. But fire did more than just keep the predators away. It literally changed our biology. Dr. Richard Wrangham, a primatologist and anthropologist at Harvard University, famously proposed the cooking hypothesis. He argues that the control of fire and the advent of cooking was the primary driver of human evolution. Cooking pre-digested our food, unlocking massive amounts of calories, which fueled the rapid expansion of the human brain, but fire also changed our social structure. It created the campfire. The campfire became the center of human social life. It was where we cooked, where we bonded, where we told stories, where we planned hunts. The campfire extended our day. It allowed us to be active, social, and cognitive long after the sun went down. But it also changed our circadian rhythms. The warm, flickering light of the fire mimicked the sunset, signaling to our brains that it was time to wind down, to produce melatonin, to prepare for sleep. The fire was our first sleep aid. It was our first security system. It allowed us to sleep deeply, knowing that the light was keeping the predators at bay. But how far back does this go? When did we actually master fire? For a long time, archaeologists believed that the controlled use of fire was a relatively recent invention, maybe 50,000 years ago, but recent discoveries have pushed that date back dramatically. Dr. Francesco D'Erico, a renowned archaeologist, has been instrumental in analyzing the evidence from Wonderwork Cave in South Africa. His research, along with his team, found microscopic traces of burned bone and ash in layers dating back 1 million years. This suggests that our early hominin ancestors, possibly Homo erectus, were controlling fire incredibly early in our evolutionary timeline. This means that for 1 million years, the dark has not been an absolute terrifying void for humans. We have had a weapon against it. We have had a portable sun. The campfire was the first technology that allowed us to look at the dark and feel safe. It was the first time we could sit at the edge of the light, look out into the pitch black, and know that the predators were out there, but they could not reach us. It created a psychological boundary. The light was life. The dark was death, and we sat in the light. But here's where the story takes a sharp, cynical turn, because we have now completely broken this system. We have taken the life-saving, predator-repelling, circadian-regulating technology of fire, and we have weaponized it against our own biology. We have conquered the dark so thoroughly that the dark no longer exists, and in doing so, we have created a modern existential nightmare. Think about your modern environment. You walk into your house, you flip a switch, the room is flooded with harsh blue-rich LED light. You stare at a screen emitting the exact same wavelength of light as the midday sun. You scroll through social media, watch the news, check your email until the exact moment you close your eyes, your brain is being blasted with photonic data that screams, "It is noon, be active, be alert." Dr. Russell Foster, a prominent circadian neuroscientist at Oxford University, has spent his career studying how light affects the human brain. His research focuses on the suprachiasmatic nucleus, the master clock in the brain that regulates our circadian rhythms. Foster explains that the light hitting your retina at 11 at night is completely suppressing your melatonin production. Your brain thinks the sun is still up. It delays your sleep cycle. It fragments your sleep architecture. And then when you finally do turn off the light, the contrast is jarring. You go from a state of hyperstimulation to absolute darkness in a microsecond. Your brain, which has been running on artificial daylight for 18 hours, suddenly experiences a sensory cliff. The reticular activating system, which keeps you alert, struggles to power down. And in that sudden artificial darkness, the ancient software boots up. The amygdala scans for threats. The pareidolia looks for shapes, but because your nervous system is already fried from chronic light pollution and circadian mismatch, the baseline anxiety is higher. The fear response is more volatile. You're not just afraid of the dark. You're afraid of the dark because your nervous system is completely dysregulated. You have created a biological mismatch of epic proportions. Your body is living in the 21st century, but your brain is still running the Pleistocene survival script. And the script is glitching because the environmental inputs are completely wrong. This mismatch has profound psychological and societal implications. We have pathologized the dark. We have turned a natural, necessary phase of the circadian cycle into a source of dread. We pump our bodies full of caffeine to fight the sleepiness, and then we take melatonin supplements to force the sleep. We buy blackout curtains to simulate the dark, and then we buy sunrise alarm clocks to simulate the light. We are desperately trying to manually override a biological system that we have spent the last century systematically dismantling, and the corporate institutions love it. They have commodified our relationship with light. They sell us the light to keep us awake, and they sell us the gadgets to help us sleep. They have turned the natural rhythm of the sun into a 24-hour consumer cycle. The dark is no longer a time for rest, for reflection, for the sentinel function to do its quiet work. The dark is just a pause button between periods of consumption. We have lost the campfire. We have lost the boundary between the light and the dark. We are just constantly, endlessly illuminated, and yet we have never been more anxious, more sleep-deprived, or more terrified of the night. We are a species that conquered the dark, only to realize that we actually needed it. Let's look at the macro picture. The fear of the dark is the ultimate expression of human evolutionary continuity. It is the thread that connects you, sitting in your climate-controlled bedroom with your smartphone and your memory foam mattress, to your ancestors huddled around a dying fire on the Pleistocene savanna. The environment has changed completely. The predators are gone. The absolute darkness is gone, but the hardware remains. The amygdala still fires. The sentinel function still scans. The pareidolia still looks for faces in the shadows. Your brain is still running the exact same survival software it was running 100,000 years ago, because from an evolutionary perspective, 100,000 years is nothing. It is a blink of an eye. The software works. It kept your ancestors alive. It kept them breathing. It kept them reproducing. The fact that it makes you feel a little bit crazy when you wake up at 3 in the morning is just a minor bug in an otherwise flawless operating system. Think about the sheer staggering resilience of that. Your body is a museum of ancient adaptations. Every time you get goosebumps when you're cold, you're mimicking the fur-raising display of a primate ancestor trying to look bigger. Every time you yawn, you're cooling your brain, a mechanism inherited from early mammals. And every time you feel a spike of primal terror when the lights go out, you're honoring the millions of humans who stood at the edge of the firelight, stared into the abyss, and chose to survive. You're the culmination of an unbroken chain of paranoia. You're the descendant of the cowards, the terrified, the hypervigilant, and that is a beautiful thing. It means you're here. It means you won. So the next time it is 3 in the morning and you wake up in a completely black room and your heart is pounding and your brain is screaming that there's a monster in the corner, do not fight it. Do not call it irrational. Do not call it a phobia. Just lie there. Feel the adrenaline. Feel the ancient primal software running its threat assessment. Acknowledge the ghost of the saber-toothed cat. Acknowledge the million years of survival that built the neural circuits firing in your head. You're not broken. You're just a Pleistocene hunter-gatherer sitting in a cave, waiting for the sun to come up. And honestly, respect. Now, what is the most ridiculous thing you have ever been afraid of in the dark? Tell me in the comments.